In the world of My Hero Academia, about 80% of the world has a special ability called quirks. Now, these don't have to be useful. I mean, this guy's basically a coat hanger. But those that have more useful quirks usually go on to become heroes, and that's the dream of our protagonist, Izuku Midoriya, who wants to be a hero just like his idol and the #1 hero, All Might. Except, according to his doctor, he's one of the unlucky 20% without a quirk. Oh, and this guy definitely won't be important later on. To make matters worse, Izuku gets bullied by his childhood friend, Katsuki Bakugo, who has a super cool explosion quirk where his sweat is made of nitroglycerin and can be ignited. He calls Izuku Deku, which means useless, and Izuku calls him Katchan. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of names at you, but just stay with me. Izuku gets attacked by a sludge villain and is saved by none other than All Might himself, who is later revealed to be a frail little man because of a really bad injury, which means he can only sustain his muscle form for so long. The sludge villain attacks again and takes Bakugo hostage, and after seeing his friend in trouble, Izuku's legs start moving before he can think, and he holds off the sludge villain long enough for All Might to arrive and save the day. Bakugo thanks Deku for saving him. Oh wait, never mind. Anyway, it looks like Izuku is just a magnet for heroes because All Might meets him again, where he tells him that his quirk isn't genetic and has actually been passed down through history, gathering more and more power along the way, hence the name One for All. And you guessed it, after training Izuku, All Might transfers his quirk to him by making him eat his hair, making Izuku his protege and the future symbol of peace. Everything's all well in the world now because Izuku can finally go to UA, a prestigious hero school where he can learn to become a great hero. Oh wait, never mind, the entrance exam is right around the corner and Izuku has no idea how to use the quirk and there's a chance his body won't be able to handle it. Better than nothing, I guess. At least things can't get any worse. Meet Ochako Uraraka, a girl with an anti-gravity quirk who thinks the name Deku means I can do it instead of useless. Isn't that cute and inspiring? She definitely isn't the most generic love interest you'll ever meet.
Actually, she's not generic and she's far more than a love interest and is actually a very laid character and a great example of a powerful female character with their own drives and motives.
Oh no, his legs and arms don't work anymore. Oh no, he's falling. Oh no, he's gonna die. Turns out Izuku didn't actually earn any points in the entrance exams but still managed to get into UA because Ochako gave some of her points to him. Great, now nothing can go wrong. Enter the #1 edgelord and the teacher of Class 1A, Aizawa, also known as Eraserhead, and he has it out for Izuku. But that's okay because Izuku wins him over. Next, we get to see everyone's costumes, which really suck, but that's okay because the fans pressured Horikoshi into changing them, and what the fuck? Okay, I promise there's a good reason for this. Class 1A's next training exercise involves them breaking off into pairs, with Izuku being paired up with Uraraka because that's not cliche at all. And his opponent is none other than Bakugo because that's not cliche at all. Oh, and also this guy called Tenya Ida, who has engines in his legs and can run really fast. Despite the obvious difference in skill at this point between Izuku and Bakugo, Izuku still manages to beat him because... Wait, what was I saying again? Oh yeah, Izuku's team end up winning and... Can we just get to the next episode already? The next couple episodes introduce us to the rest of the class, and this is where I really need you to stay with me because I'm about to throw a lot at you. Yuga Aoyama can shoot lasers from his navel, Mina Ashido can fire out acid, Tsuyu Asui can do pretty much whatever a frog can, Mashiro Ojiro has a tail, Denki Kaminari can shoot lightning and stuff, Ejiro Kirishima can harden, no, not like that, Koji Koda can talk to animals, Rikido Sato eats sugar and gets buff, Meizo Shoji has extra limbs. How did these last three get in? Kyokujiro has great hearing and can fire out sound waves, Hanto Sera is basically Spider-Man but with tape from his elbows, Fumikage Tokiyami can summon a shadow that gets stronger in the darkness. Shoto Todoroki is the love child of Pyro and Iceman. Toru Hagakure is invisible. How did she get in? Minoru Mineta's hair is made up of sticky bolts. I'm not even gonna try with this one. And finally, Momo Yao Yorozu can create stuff using the lipids in her body, hence her costume, so she can create from anywhere on her body. See? Told you it made sense. During another training session, the class are ambushed by the League of Villains led by Tomura Shigaraki, who has a quirk that lets him decay stuff and is a whiny little bitch. They bring Captain Falcon with them, who's super strong, and there's a bunch of fighting, and Izuku does some cool stuff, and All Might arrives to save the day. season 1 done. Season 2 kicks off with a sports festival where we meet class 1B and students from some of the other courses like Mei Hatsume, a genius inventor. The students all compete in a race and Izuku wins without using his quirk, with Bakugo and Todoroki taking the 2nd and 3rd spots. The next competition is a cavalry battle and Izuku teams up with Ochako, Mei, and Tokiyami, where the goal is to collect as many headbands as possible, with each of them having a different amount of points. Bakugo's team do pretty great, and then begins what is genuinely one of the best tournament arcs in anime, probably even the second best. The Dark Tournament still clears. Turns out Todoroki hates his dad, who is the number 2 hero, because he created Shoto to one day surpass All Might. That definitely won't be important later. Izuku fights Shinso, who has a brainwashing quirk but breaks out because of plot armor. I mean, because it turns out that One for All is basically like the Avatar state and the past users help him out. Everyone who you expect to win ends up winning except Shoto, who really wins. Bakugo fights Uraraka in what is actually a really good fight, where he acknowledges her strength but still ends up whooping her ass. And next up is the one you've all been waiting for. We get to see Todoroki's backstory, where his dad abused his mum and his mum poured boiling water on his face, which is why he has that scar. Oh, and Deku breaks all his fingers. And then we get to see one of the best animated scenes in the series to round off this amazing fight, with Todoroki taking the win. That brings us to the finals between Bakugo and Todoroki, who are pretty evenly matched, with Bakugo taking the win but being angry because Todoroki didn't use his left side, and we learn that Ida has an older brother who is the hero in Genium and is in hospital after being messed up by the hero killer. Not much of a killer considering this guy's still alive. The class picked their names, which I won't bore you with, except for Uraraka picking Uravity, which is pretty cute, and Izuku picking Deku because Uraraka taught him it can mean something positive, which is also pretty cute. The students then go out for their internships, with Bakugo working under the number 3 hero Best Genist, Shoto working under his dad even though he hates him, and Izuku working under Gran Torino, who was All Might's mentor but not the one that gave him his quirk. She's called Nanoshimura and she's dead as fuck. Gran Torino teaches Deku to control his quirk better by using it at only 5%, and Ida tracks down the hero killer Stain, and it doesn't go well for him, but that's okay because Midoriya comes to the rescue, except it's not okay because of the Nomura attacking. But hey, at least we get to see Endeavor in action, where he shows us that even though he's a prick, he's a pretty badass prick. Anyway, Izuku and Ida fight Stain, and he has a quirk where he can paralyze you by licking your blood, but it's all good because Todoroki arrives to save the day, and the 3 of them team up to take down the hero killer. A little later, All Might tells us about the big bad himself, the real leader of the League of Villains, All for One. His quirk lets him take quirks from others or give them to others, and he's actually the one who ended up accidentally creating One for All by giving a stockpiling quirk to his brother without knowing he had a quirk that let him transfer quirk to others. The show then reminds us that these kids are still high schoolers and have to take their final exams, which involves them pairing up and going up against their teachers, and Izuku ends up being paired with Bakugo. Can this show get any more cliche? Yes, it can, because they're fighting All Might, who both of them practically worship, but Bakugo kind of does it in a low-key way. Anyway, they end up biting the bullet to work together, and that wraps up the exams, and the students go to the mall because they deserve some fun, but they can't actually catch a break because Shigaraki ambushes Izuku and seductively whispers into his ear before leaving, and that's the end of season 2. But hold your horses, before we can get to season 3, we gotta go through the first movie, which isn't supposed to be canon, but they reference stuff from it later, so I guess you've got no choice but to watch this part 2. We start with a flashback from All Might's past when he was in his prime in America with his best bud David Shield. Turns out he's visiting his friend again, and Deku gets to come along with him because why not, and meet yet another potential love interest. But oh look, everyone else is here too, and oh my god, villains are attacking. Who could have seen that coming? The main villain, Wolfram, is basically Magneto. He's actually hired by David Shield so that he can take back his invention that amplifies quirks. See, I actually didn't see that one coming, so good on the movie for actually adding in a decent plot twist. Wow, who would have thought that the super strong villain would want to steal the thing that can make him even more powerful? So creative. Alright boys and girls, strap in for season 3 where class 1A and 1B go camping, and we get to meet the wild pussycats who don't actually matter that much, but we also get to meet Mandalay's nephew Kota, who actually does kind of matter later on because he hates heroes and he's the reason we get this scene. Surprise surprise, the League of Villains attacks again. It's almost like there's someone leaking information. Anyway, there's a bunch of fighting and Kota comes across the villain who killed his parents, Muscular. But don't worry, Izuku's here to save the day. Oh no, Izuku broke his arm. Oh no, Izuku's not strong enough. Well, that did the trick. But seriously, this episode is great and it literally had me crying like Kota. There's some more fighting and Momo puts a tracker on one of the Nomu, which is important later on, and we meet Twice, who can make copies of himself, Compress, who can trap people in little balls, Spinner, who looks like this, and Himiko Toga, who's kind of crazy and kind of likes Izuku, which means there's tension between her and Ochaka, and oh no, Bakugo's been kidnapped. There's growing concern among the public, which is pretty reasonable, because why as a hero school are you getting attacked by villains so much? But it's all good, because Izuku, Shoto, Ida, Momo, and Kirishima decide to rescue Bakugo and the League of Villains by making use of the tracker Momo put on them. See, told you it would be important. The heroes successfully carry out a raid on the League of Villains, except it isn't successful and they gotta fight a bunch of Nomu while the League escape with Bakugo. But wait, how did they escape?
振り向くことさえ一瞬の出来事何が起きたのか1秒にも満たないそれでもその男の気迫があれがオール・フォー・ワン
さてやるか
Enter All for One. Now this guy is basically the Giga Chad of villains, and he messes All Might the hell up to the point his biggest hater has to come and cheerlead for him. And just when you think it can't get any worse, he tells All Might that Shigaraki is actually Nana Shimura's grandson. He handpicked the grandchild of his greatest enemy just to spite his new enemy. Bro is a menace. But it's all good because the kids end up saving Bakugo, and now All Might doesn't have to hold back anymore. But uh-oh, he runs out of juice, and now the world knows that their greatest hero is just a frail little man. But that's okay because he remembers what his master once told him, and he brings out all the states to save the day.
何人もの人がその力を次へと託してきたんだよ。次はお前の番だ。頑張ろうな、年成。
さらばだオール・フォー・ワンユナイテッド
It's kind of an issue that UA keeps getting attacked, so they decide it's best to keep all the students in one place because that definitely won't make it all the more enticing for the villains to attack. The teachers go around asking their parents for permission because we gotta remember these are literal kids that have been fighting horrific battles because the adults are incompetent. And Izuku's mum is all like,
No, I don't want my son to be breaking his bones and almost dying.
but All Might bows to her and suddenly everything's fine somehow. Izuku goes to Mei for an upgrade on his costume while the students try to come up with ultimate moves, and Izuku comes up with the best one of all. Legs. And now it's time for the licensing exam where they gotta pass to get their provisional hero licenses so they can do actual hero work and use their quirks out in public. Not like they weren't doing that anyway, but now they won't get told off for doing it. We meet Shiketsu High, which is another big hero school, and also these other two, which are kind of mildly important later on. This guy makes things go brr, and I genuinely can't remember what she does. We also meet this guy who does the same thing as this guy, and he hates this guy because he ignored him one time, which is almost as bad as this guy's backstory. And then there's Keimi Utsushimi, who isn't actually all that important yet, but people remember her because she's hot and dumb. Momo and the others go against these knockoff Sailor Moon characters and win because duh, and Bakugo, Kaminari, and Kirishima going against this guy and win because duh. The next phase of the exam involves a rescue exercise where Bakugo is a prick to everyone and Shoto and Inasa keep fighting so none of them pass and everyone else does. After the exam, we found out that Keimi wasn't actually Keimi but was actually Toga, who used her quirk to transform into Keimi, and we also listened in on a little conversation between All Might and All for One, which really makes you think why they don't just kill this guy. And now it's the moment everyone's been waiting for, where Izuku and Bakugo finally fight in a really well animated and choreographed action sequence where Izuku kicks it up to 8% of One for All, but Bakugo still wins and All Might tells him about One for All and he agrees to keep it a secret. What a nice guy. Back at UA, we meet the big three, the best students at UA who are in their third year. We've got Mirio Togata, aka Lemillion, Tamaki Amajiki, also known as Sun Eater, and Nejire Hado, also known as Nejire-chan. Wow, I wonder how she came up with that one. Mirio fights all of Class 1A minus Bakugo and Shoto and effortlessly puts them to sleep with his quirk that lets him permeate through objects, which is explained to be a pretty weak quirk that Mirio turned into something super strong through hard work, and that's just one of the many reasons why he's touted to be the next #1 hero. Season 4 kicks off by introducing us to Kai Chisaki, also known as Overhaul, the villain Shigaraki wishes he was because... The students are supposed to start their work studies, which is different to their internships from before, and Izuku asks Mirio to introduce him to his mentor Sir Naitai, who used to be All Might's partner. Sir Naitai has a quirk called Foresight, which lets him do exactly what you think it does, and he fell out with All Might because he saw him dying a gruesome death, but All Might didn't listen and kept going about his business. He even gives Aizawa a run for his money for the title of #1 edgelord, but Deku manages to win him over too. While out on patrol, Deku and Lemillion meet Eri, who is definitely not being abused by Chisaki, and everyone goes about their day. We then meet Ryukyu, the Dragoon hero, hero, who is Nedori's mentor and also Fat Gum, who is Tamaki's mentor. Tamaki and Kirishima run into this guy using a drug called Trigger to amplify his quirk, and he shoots Amajiki with a drug that takes away his quirk. But don't worry, because it's temporary, and Kirishima is more than man enough to save the day. We then learn that Chisaki is actually using Eri's body to manufacture this quirk erasing drug, and the different agencies come together to plan a raid on the Shie Hasaikai. There's some backstory on Sun Eater, which more than anything shows how amazing and friendly Mirio is, and then we cut back to the present and Sun Eater goes off in a 3-on-1 and he packs their shit up. But he's not the only one who shines, as Fat Gum and Red Riot go up against these two distinguished gentlemen, and we get some backstory on Kirishima and Mina before cutting back to the present so he can go off too. And now we all get to bear witness to the real best boy of the show going off, and boy does he go off. This guy right here uses his quirk to knock off Mirio's balance, so he's basically all drunk. But despite that, he doesn't just hold his own in a 3-on-1 fight whilst protecting Eri, but he actually messes them up different. Eventually, this guy decides that enough is enough and he shoots a permanent quirk erasing bullet at Eri, knowing Mirio would save her, which he does, meaning unfortunately he loses his quirk forever. But that's not enough to stop him, because he keeps fighting, protecting Eri without his powers for a full 15 minutes, because in his own words,
俺は依然ルミリオンだ。ありえない。榊の個性はまだ効いているはず。無敵かのような個性は失ったはず。エリさんを傷つけないという枷を負っているはず。なんだこいつは。
Deku and Night Eye soon arrive to lend a helping hand, where Overhaul fuses with one of his men and skewers Night Eye right in front of his protege's eyes. And just when you think you possibly can't feel any worse for Mirio, we get a scene of him bloodied and limping, desperately trying to get Eri to safety. But things aren't so simple, as Chisaki manipulates Eri by telling her he'll stop if she comes back, which she does, and then it's Deku's turn to pop off. But before that, we learn that Eri's quirk is the ability to rewind, and after that we're treated to one of the best OSTs in the entire show, as Deku gives it his all to save Eri. Faced with a gargantuan overhaul, Deku realizes his quirk isn't harming him, because Eri is able to rewind his body as quickly as it's being torn apart, allowing him to use 100% of his quirk without needing to hold back. The next episode is probably one of the darker parts of My Hero, with Dabi basically turning this hero into ash and Shigaraki cutting off Shisaki's hands so he can't use his quirk ever again. Oh, and Night Eye dies. Now there's some other bullshit in between the Shoto and Bakugo trying to get their provisional licenses, with Inasa and the real Kami, who has an illusion quirk. But let's cut to the serious stuff. No, I mean the serious stuff.
私の個性はエラスティシティジェントリーリバウンド
No, I said let's cut to the serious stuff.
見えるかい緑谷くんさあ笑った
Okay, that's pretty cute. And that brings us to the annual Japanese hero billboard charts, with Endeavor being the new #1 hero and Hawks taking the second spot. His quirk is actually pretty sick because he can control each individual feather from his wings, which comes in handy as they're attacked by a Nomu. This high-end Nomu isn't like the others we've seen so far. Other than being super powerful and able to regenerate, it can actually talk and gives the new #1 a real run for his money in one of the best fights in the entire show. Everything from the music to the voice acting is absolutely amazing, and it ends with the country being able to breathe a collective sigh of relief, right in time for the next movie. Class 1A are on Naboo Island on a safety program to sharpen their skills, where we're introduced to these two little shits, but also Nines, a villain with 9 quirks, but also a teeny tiny issue where he's gonna die if he doesn't get a cell activation quirk that belongs to none other than, you guessed it, this little shit. So yeah, the students fight and get their asses kicked, besides Bakugo because he's the one that does the ass kicking, and then Deku fights and get his ass kicked, but then Bakugo joins in and also gets his ass kicked, but then the others come to help, and through a little bit of plot armor everything is okay. But then they all fight again but win this time, and the animation is top tier throughout. Oh, and Deku actually gives Bakugo one for all because there's no other way to win, and they team up and save the day, and Deku loses his quirk except for the fact that he doesn't, because this is just a movie. It turns out that Izuku can actually speak to the vestiges of the past holders of One for All, which is pretty similar to to a certain other show. The season kicks off with a joint training battle between Class 1A and Class 1B plus Shinso, the brainwashing guy. This time, Izuku and Bakugo aren't in the same team and they're not against each other. Glad they're trying their best to not be cliche. Oh, for fuck! There's a bunch of fighting which really isn't that important to the plot, but some of the fights are actually pretty damn cool, with Ida really shining and Shota doing this cool fireball thing. And then we get to the fights people actually care about, with Bakugo leading his team to a flawless victory against Setsuna, another recommendation student. And that brings us to Deku's team's battle, where we see him using Air Force with the gauntlets given to him by Mei. It turns out Deku can actually use the quirks of the past holders, and this one is called Black Whip, but he can't control it yet, which is just an excuse for him and Ochako to be all cute, as his team also earns a flawless victory. Izuku, Shoto, and Bakugo soon join Endeavor's agency to learn from the very best, whilst Hawks investigates the Metal Liberation Army, which are kind of like the League of Villains except way bigger. At this point, I thought I was watching an episode of The Office with how awkward this family dinner was, but it's also pretty important because we find out that Endeavor had another child called Toya that died. And now it's time for My Villain Academia, which takes us through the League of Villains struggling against the Metal Liberation Army, with Shiggy butting heads with Dr. Doofenshmirtz over here. The important stuff to take away from here is Toga becoming Ochako and using her quirk to kill a bunch of people, and twice duplicating into a literal army. While the season kind of drags at points, it really finishes strong by showing us Tomura Shigaraki's origins, or to give him his real name, Tenko Shimura. His father didn't like heroes because his mother, Nana Shimura, practically abandoned him because she didn't want All For One targeting her family. Tenko actually really liked heroes and was playing with his sister when his dad yelled at them, but his sister actually put all the blame on him. Eventually his sister comes to apologize, but Tenko's quirk manifests and he kills the family dog, and he kills his sister, and he kills his father, before finally ending up killing his mother in what's a really sad scene where she dies while trying to embrace him. And now we're back to the present, where Shigaraki faces off against Dr. Doofenshmirtz and undergoes a quirk awakening, making it so that his decay not only destroys whatever he touches, but also spreads to anything connected to it. This earns him the respect of Gigantomachia, who was All For One's bodyguard, but now ends up serving Shigaraki, and so does everyone else, as he renames the organization to the Paranormal Liberation Front, becoming their supreme commander. The season ends with Tomura undergoing a painful process of being given a copy of All For One so he can also use multiple quirks. Whoa. I wonder if this will be important later on. Alright, boys, girls, and everything in between, before we get to the long-awaited war arc, we've actually got to go through one last movie. World Heroes Mission is about a group called Humorize who adhere to the quirk Doomsday Theory, which basically means anyone with a quirk is diseased and needs to be eradicated. They're led by Megamind over here, and they have something called a trigger bomb, which causes people's quirks to go out of control until they die. During his work study, Deku's chasing this thief called Rhodey, and he ends up being wrongfully accused of a crime, and the two of them are chased by Humorize, with Bakugo and Shoto soon arriving to help them because the movie would be pretty boring without them. And eventually, through the power of friendship, Deku defeats Flecht and they all live happily ever after, until season 6, where literally everything goes to shit. We start off with Hawks pretending to be a member of the PLF and becoming friends with Twice so he can steal information so the heroes can raid this not so innocent hospital where they're creating Nomu and enhancing Shiggy. And now it's finally time for our girl to pop off. Mirko, the number 5 hero, takes on a bunch of Nomu by herself in the most badass fight in the whole show since Mirio beating down the Shie Hasaikai. But if you thought what Mirko did to these Nomu was bad, it's got nothing on the emotional damage Hawks inflicts by betraying Twice and almost killing him. Luckily, Darby intervenes just in time and turns Hawks into fried chicken, but too little too late, as we witness one of the saddest scenes in the entire show.
自分よりも大事な仲間に恵まれた。
シンくん、助けてくれてありがとう。
これより最高な人生があんのかよ。死ねえよ、ホークス。運が悪かったなんててめえが決めるな。俺はここにいられて幸せだったんだ。
Mirko and the other heroes are doing their best to stop Shiggy before he's complete and actually succeed. But my boy survives on pure hatred and completely levels the city. With the decay spreading further and further by the second and the heroes getting more and more desperate, the situation is only getting worse as Shiggy is on the hunt for One For All, with him facing off against Deku, Bakugo, Endeavor, and Gran Torino, whilst Mount Lady takes on Gigantomachia. Oh, and Midnight dies. The students are given a chance to shine as they work together to stop Machia and save as many people as they can, with some more heroes joining in and trying to stop Shiggy as Eraserhead keeps his decay quirk at bay. Unfortunately, Shiggy is just too damn powerful and takes out both Gran Torino and Aizawa and is about to utterly level the place until Izuku awakens his next quirk, float, which belonged to none other than Nana Shimura. He goes full on Siku mode against Shigaraki to the point All For One has to take over his body and nearly impales Deku, only for Bakugo of all people to save him. Now you might be thinking, I'd sure hate to be Endeavor right now. Imagine being the #1 hero and having everyone's hopes resting on your shoulders as things go to shit. Well, at least it can't get any worse.
過去は消えない。さあ自業自得だぜ。さあ一緒に落ちよう轟エンジ。地獄で俺と踊ろうぜ。なあ、お父さん。
Luckily, things aren't all doom and gloom as Best Jeanist is finally back to save the day, but even he can only do so much as the heroes are starting to lose hope. And just like that, thanks to Eri, our best boy is back as everyone works together to put a stop to the villains. But it's never really that easy, with Compress literally taking off chunks of his body to try and escape, where he finally reaches Shigaraki and wait. The villains win? Alright, so the villains may have won, but All For One ain't done winning because he wants a full-on clean sweep. Taking control of Shiggy's body, he frees every prisoner including Stain, Muscular, and this lady who's important later on. Holy shit, is that Overhaul? Slowly but surely, the country is starting to lose hope in heroes, with riots breaking out and everything you'd expect to happen when an entire city is literally turned to dust. So what do we do when things go bad? We get another flashback. Toya Todoroki's childhood is less than ideal. Endeavor always pushed him to become stronger than All Might, and Toya tried his best to make his dad happy. But eventually, Enji realizes that even though Toya's firepower is even stronger than his body is too weak and Toya just isn't cut out to be a great hero. So imagine how this little kid feels when he sees Endeavor have another better kid and he suddenly has to stop wanting to be a hero despite it being all he's ever known. Anyway, he does what anyone would do and goes into the woods to train and ends up burning down everything and anything, including himself, and that's that. Back to the present, Izuku leaves UA, realizing that his friends will only end up becoming targets because of him, and he tells them all about One For All. He goes full on vigilante mode as he learns to use more of his quirks, which includes Smokescreen, Danger Sense, and Transmission. We see these two again in Izuku fights Muscular and basically one-taps him, and then he fights Hawks' old mentor, Lady Nagant, who was actually a hero turned villain. Turns out that the Hero Commission made Nagant do some pretty messed up stuff, and she's tasked by All For One to take out Deku, which she obviously fails to do as Deku used another quirk called Fajin and wins her heart over, so everyone gets a happy ending, except All For One makes Nagant explode and nobody actually gets a happy ending. Oh, and Shiseki is here too, but he's broken, so let's get to the next part. Class 1A eventually track down Deku and they do their best to make him see sense, with all of them playing a part in what is honestly a rather heartwarming sequence where Ida is finally the one to get through to him, and as if things couldn't get any sweeter, there's an amazing scene where Bakugo finally apologizes to Izuku for all he's done to him, and we're taken through these beautiful shots of them growing up together. Unfortunately, not everything is rosy back at UA, which is now a safe haven for the public, and they don't want Deku back because they know the villains are after him, and honestly, can't really argue with that. And this is where I have to put my hands up and take back everything I've said about Uraraka, because this is so damn good. From the writing of her actual speech to the voice actors' performances in both sub and dub, everything is literally perfect, with Horikoshi even putting in the extra detail of Kota wearing the same shoes as Deku because he idolizes him the same way Deku idolizes All Might.